Hi, Jamie.
Hi, what should I call you?
Liv. Just Liv's
Liv?
fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
Liv. It's nice to meet you,
Unhinged.
Liv.
Nice to meet
Unhinged?
you. Yeah.
Which
Extreme.
is an unhinged? Is it you that's unhinged, or is it the podcast that's unhinged, or you talk to unhinged people, or all?
Mm. It's all. I mean, not everyone I talk to is unhinged, but I try and get the most outrageous interviews that I can, or at least the most outrageous subjects that people are interested in, and just not be vanilla about it. And I'm always like an open book about my BPD and my addiction and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be unhinged for sure. There's nothing, everything goes basically.
Yeah.
So
I don't like
yes.
vanilla. I always
No.
prefer if I'm eating ice cream, it has a bunch of chunks, bunch of stuff going on. So this is good.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. Please swear away, say anything. And yeah, so you were just saying, I was just asking you, so obviously your name is Jamie, but you're known for Emmy Thomas as an author. And obviously, yes, your other professions. So can you just explain to me about that, please?
Yeah. So you were asking me before, well, how did I come up with Emmy Thomas? The Emmy is my sister-in-law came up with it when I started writing my blog, Sociopath World. It was the height of mommy blogging, and I didn't know how to set up a blog. So I asked her to do it for me, basically. I think I paid her like $100 to do it. And she just came up with it. It's just me. And then when I went to go publish my book, which came out in 2013, Confessions of a Sociopath, A Life Spent Hiding in Plain Sight, they said, we need a last name. And have you ever seen the TV show 30 Rock?
I love that TV show. Yeah. It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. So Tina Fey gets set up by Alec Baldwin on a date with a woman whom he had always referred to as Thomas. I'm going to set you up with my friend Thomas. But Thomas turns out to be her last name. It's Gretchen Thomas. And then I thought, Thomas is such a good gender bending last name that's also pretty internationally standard. It feels like people have a pretty easy time saying it. So that's why I chose Thomas.
Oh, nice. I love that it came from there. Yeah, Tina Fey's a legend, and 30 Rock, Alec Baldwin cracked me up so much in that show. I love it. And what's oh God, what's his name? The guy who plays dumb the whole time, the dumb actor.
The Page, Kenneth?
No, the black guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Tracy Morgan.
Tracy Morgan, he's an absolute genius, legend in that. So funny. So yeah, I guess to dive right in. So I've seen that you called yourself obviously a sociopath and a psychopath, and maybe someone with antisocial traits. Which label? Because how do you differ a psychopath from a sociopath with yourself?
Yeah, I would say when I came on the scene, I was not thinking I was even really part of the scene. Like when I first heard the word applied to me, it was the word sociopath. And I was doing an internship during law school. It was after my first year, and I shared an office with somebody else. After weeks of kind of chit-chatting, because we shared the same office and didn't have enough work to do, really, she was like, you may want to consider the possibility that you're a sociopath. So I Googled sociopath. I come up with the results at the time, which had Hervey Cleckley's diagnostic criterion. He's kind of early 20th century, early to mid 20th century guy. And then it also had Robert Hare, who's a Canadian researcher, who's kind of like dominant late 20th century guy, had his diagnostic criteria. I look at him, I'm like, yeah, okay, this does fit. And then I thought nothing of it for like several years until my life kind of hit the skids again. Everything kind of went bad. I lost my job, bunch of relationships. Suddenly, I was busy, high-powered attorney, then suddenly a lot of free time. And just kind of like, what happened? So I thought I had before journaled, maybe in high school a little bit in college. And I thought I'll kind of start a journal, but I want this to be, I thought back, hey, maybe there's something to the sociopath thing, right? And I tried looking for stuff. It's all negative. It's all sociopaths are terrible. There's no treatment. They're soulless. They're inhuman. They're all these different things. There was nothing positive about it. So I thought, it's got to be more nuanced than this. And I'm going to just kind of start the blogging about this. So I never thought, hey, I'm going to be whatever the face of this. So I just used the word that I had heard somebody call me, which is sociopath. And I knew that there was psychopath. I knew antisocial personality disorder. I don't have a degree in psychology.
But a lot enough, probably.
I've learned since then. I've talked to people. I've educated myself because it's become more a part of my life. But at the beginning, it wasn't. So I was like, okay, sociopath world. That's going to be, that was the word that I had heard, I guess, in the growing up in the United States more frequently. That's why I chose it. I didn't know there was like this big debate about what to call it. I didn't know there was this big debate about like what constitutes it, all this kind of disagreement about it until years later. The reason why I've started using psychopath instead is during the pandemic, I did with the author of Killing Eve, the book series.
Yeah, Luke, I love Killing Eve.
Yeah, Luke, who sent me autographed books of his and said that he actually got quite a bit from my book to help him.
Wow, no way.
Yeah, totally,
that is
yes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that shit. Yeah.
So we did like a Zoom that people could watch, I guess. So it was like a live Zoom or something, Killing an Evening. And then they were like, Jamie, we really don't use the word sociopath in the UK. So then I thought, okay,
Really?
Same like choosing Thomas. I was like, the international version seems to be psychopath. So I'll just switch to using psychopath.
Well, that's interesting because I've heard so many different things about, psychopaths have to be this just evil, black eyes, nothing, no empathy whatsoever. And I've heard you talk about different types of empathy, which I'll come to. But yes, definitely I've heard sociopath now is called antisocial personality disorder, and there's all sorts of things. But so which label do you think is the most accurate? I guess you just said basically, I think you were saying you don't particularly like labels, or beforehand anyway. But what gets the strongest reaction from people? Probably psychopath, right?
I think psychopath gets the strongest reaction. Yeah, if you were to say what, kind of freaks people out the most. In fact, some people will even be like, this person's not as bad as a psychopath. They're just a sociopath. I've heard normal people use that. So I don't know. The reason why I kind of thought, too, I'm going to use sociopath is because psychopath, you shorten to psycho. And I think that is often confused with psychotic, which is a totally different thing. So I thought, if you're going to use something and you don't want it confused with being psychotic, which means you are outside of reality. And kind of famously, psychopaths are not outside of reality. There's the early French term was like mania sans delirium, I think, was what they had called it, like back in the turn of the 20th century. Kind of thinking about this concept that was the one thing that they thought. In fact, Cleckley's book, what is it called? Mask of Sanity. So this idea that these people can be so outside of society but not be crazy was the thing that really hung people up for a long time, for like decades and decades, when they first were starting to identify psychopaths as a specific type of mental health disorder. So I think it's good to kind of distinguish between that. I do think a lot of people I talk to say we have a branding problem. People hear psychopaths and they're like, that's bad, and they don't think mental health disorder. They just think murderer. They think.
Do you know what's interesting is I think, wow, like maybe that's part of my borderline because we have a secondary psychopath, but I'm drawn to that. Like, I'm really drawn to it. It's terrible. I mean, well, it's not terrible at all. But like, yeah, I'm like, ooh, psychopath. Okay. I can't believe I'm saying this. But yeah, I think it's like an attractive word, even though it's associated with people like Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, it's just like, wow. But there's so many functioning psychopaths in society who are, politicians, lawyers, like surgeons and everything, and then not murderers. Not everyone's a bloody murderer. So have you ever discovered that something you thought was completely normal turned out to be a psychopathic trait?
Yes, and in fact, I would say that was one hard thing about writing my book is that I thought, okay, here's some good, stories, and people would be like, no, this happens to everyone. We don't like this. And then I'd tell some other story and they'd be like, you did what? They'd be like shocked about the thing. So it is kind of hard to understand because when I was growing up, I didn't think sociopath. I knew I was different. But I thought I didn't have that word. I thought to the extent that I knew that word, I knew it too from the Hollywood villains. I knew it too from, I don't know, the guys Bruce Willis is fighting or whatever. Sylvester Stallone is getting the psychopaths, the evil Russian dude who's a psychopath or whatever. So I never applied that term to myself, but now. And so I would say I'm still a little bit confused. And honestly, I think the psychology world is still a little confused too. I think it's oddly for as common as it is, which they estimate it's 1% to 4% of the population, which puts us at more common than autism.
Wow.
Actually.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
1% to 4%.
Yes. Yeah. The bottom range is like 1%. And autism, I believe, is just under 1%. Or in that kind of range a little bit, depending on how you assess it, I guess. But it's much more common than people think, I believe. It's much more, I mean, the chances of you knowing a psychopath are very high. Do you know 100 people? Probably.
Yeah.
Most people do.
Yeah. I have an ex who I can guarantee. Well, again, it's the distinction between sociopath or psychopath. Like, yeah, I'll tell you about him later.
Yeah.
But yes, I do think I know psychopaths. Yes, but yeah, we don't know.
That doesn't surprise me at all if you're attracted to psychopaths.
Oh yeah, that's true. Borderlines are very attracted to narcissists, and because we have some narcissistic traits as well. But yeah, sociopaths and psychopaths as well. But yeah, so I know you've talked about cognitive empathy. What would you say is the difference between understanding someone's pain and actually feeling it?
I mean, honestly, I don't know that there is a difference. Sometimes I think everybody's doing cognitive empathy, So I guess the difference, some people think that they see somebody having an emotion and that they are also experiencing it. I think that's what people think empathy is. A big portion of the population thinks I'm feeling this person's sadness and I'm also sad, they're sad. This is the same emotion. I think that sounds totally implausible to me. I can't imagine how that could possibly be true. That sounds a little bit like, I just learned this actually, is that we used to think collectively that when you sneeze, your soul could escape your body. And we have these ways of trying to keep the soul in. And one of them is if somebody around you hears you sneezes and says, bless you or something, that's how you keep the soul from sneaking out of the body during the sneeze. And it's so funny because now we think of that as the polite thing to do.
Yeah.
Like if you don't say bless you, then it's like, you don't give a fuck about my soul sneaking out during my sneeze, I guess. But I think this conception of empathy is a little bit like that. I think we had like some kind of primitive experiences that made us think this is what's happening. And we've never questioned it. Like we've never questioned why we say bless you for a sneeze, but not for a cough. You know? Could be for anything else. We don't say bless you. It's only sneezes. Yeah. It's sneeze specific because it comes from this weird place of the soul thing. So that's what I think about empathy. Affective empathy is what people will sometimes call it. I just think it's probably not what's actually happening. Whatever's happening, I'm not sure. Mirror neurons, but I just don't think that you are feeling the experience of the other person. The hypothetical I give people is imagine a child who's starving, who is young enough to not even realize they're starving, like a baby, a toddler or something, who has always grown up in kind of starvation circumstances and doesn't even realize that this is different than not starving. And you look at that baby and they have like a fly in their eye and you think this is so sad. You're wrecked by it, which is a normal reaction to have. Is that empathy? Because the baby's just sitting there living his life. The baby's not sad.
Wow, that's a completely different perspective. I mean, the only way I could look at it is this. I feel like for people I care about, if they're crying, I'll cry. Is that me mirroring them? No, because I feel in my body, I feel pain and sadness. But whereas I can I can't believe I'm about to say this on camera, but I can watch a video of someone being beheaded and not even flinch, and I'll watch it again. So I'm like, what the fuck's going on there? Like, but yeah, so God knows, I don't know. I think everyone's different. There's a spectrum for everything, and it comes in many different forms. But when people say they feel guilt, then what do you think is actually happening inside them, just purely with guilt?
With guilt, I think that's a really good question, good example, because those are the two things that I still don't feel, even after therapy. Still don't feel the effective empathy. I still don't feel guilt. I don't know what's going on with guilt. And this is kind of like asking somebody who's colorblind to describe red and green a little bit. But what I would guess is guilt. Yeah. Is that you have a conception of yourself in a particular way, like for honesty. You think, I'm an honest person, or I'm a nice person, or, you know, whatever the type of person is. And then you do something that's inconsistent with your self-conception. So you tell a lie. And you think you're an honest person. Then you feel guilt, because that's the cognitive dissonance rub between your self-conception and the way that you've behaved. But I traditionally don't have a self-conception that I care about, at least. So I don't experience guilt. You know, I can think of myself. I don't really have a firm sense of self. There's nothing that I don't have a sense of self to betray, I guess. And I think that's what guilt really is it's a betrayal of your own self-conception, your own sense of self, and the discomfort that follows from that.
Wow. I mean, I don't have a sense of self, but I'm all over the place. I mean, yeah, but that's, again, such a fascinating point of view I've never even thought about. And have you ever been emotionally hurt by somebody? Like, or how, at least in your kind of mind, how have you been hurt by somebody? What's your version of that?
You know, I would say the thing that hurts the most, and it's also related. Let me kind of back up and think, you know, it doesn't surprise me at all to hear you say that you feel like you don't have a sense of self, because I think of all personality disorders as being a developmental disorder. This is like my own kind of view about it, because a sense of your identity, your personality, you know, your identity, your sense of self, you're not born with it, right? It's something that develops. And actually, they think it develops around age 2 when you start recognizing yourself in the mirror. Isn't it crazy that 1-year-old kids do not recognize themselves in the mirror?
And 2, yeah.
Yeah. So they don't have any independent conception of themselves. They think of themselves in some ways as an extension of their mom. They think of themselves as like an extension of everybody else. There's not really a differentiation there. Then over, you know, the period of when they start identifying or, you know, developing a sense of identity, it grows, you know, it develops. And there's so many different ways, like anything that develops, it can be disruptive. It can get messed with. It can be interfered with. It can just never develop. And so I think for psychopaths, it's like psychopaths out of all the personality disorders have the earliest disruption to where it basically doesn't develop at all. They basically have kind of no sense of self. And then, you know, narcissists, for instance, let's use somebody that's not us.
Yeah.
Narcissists have enough of a sense of self that they're easily wounded. You know, they have that attachment to their sense of self enough that they can be hurt, really hurt by it, but they don't have enough of a sense of self that they can just be themselves and not feel shame about it. They have like this deep sense of shame about their inner self, so much shame that they feel like they have to project this false outer self, right? I actually have a little bit of an analogy, especially with the narcissist, borderline personality disorder, and psychopaths, that it's a little bit like you're in a boat, like a ski boat, you know, for like water skiing or wakeboarding. The psychopath, and let's say the boat is self, you know, normal people are in the driver's seat. Normal people are driving the boat. Whatever happens to the boat, they're not seasick or anything because they're the ones driving. You know, they don't feel like it's happening to them. They feel like they are choosing the thing. They feel like they are doing the thing. And so they don't feel kind of this discomfort that the other people feel. Psychopaths don't feel a lot of discomfort. They're kind of like they're back on a 40-foot rope or whatever. They're behind the boat, you know, like at least 10 meters, and they're just chilling. The boat could be doing all this stuff, you know, bumps or whatever, and they're just getting dragged in the water. You know, they feel it, but it's very there's a big distance between it. There's an effect, but if they're zigzagging, then the psychopath is basically still going, getting pulled a little bit, but hardly at all. Borderline personality people, I think, are more like they're holding on the back of the boat. And actually, I have the most sympathy for borderline personality disorder for this, because it's like everything that's happening to the boat, it's like they're getting it in the face, basically.
Yes.
It's just like constant, like the boats, whatever, doing all this stuff that I feel like they feel like they're getting the brunt of everything and none of the sense of control or self-determination.
Yeah, we're called emotional burn victims. Like, you feel it so deeply, like it's a burn victim continuously. Yeah.
Yeah. And narcissists, I think, they're like at the head of the boat. You know, they say if you're on the boat and you might get seasick, the best places to be is in the back. Because the front's where like all the hitting happens, like the bam, 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 bam. And they think that being in the front of the boat, they're somehow leading the boat or directing the boat, but they're not. They're just getting
chaos.
all the hits or whatever. Yeah. And so I think of it, in fact, I have like this theory that when psychopaths start strengthening their sense of self and basically trying to pull themselves up the rope into the boat, they actually go through a period in which they feel like borderline personality disorder. They like experience it for several months. Yes, because they're back there at the end of the boat, just like the borderline people are before they actually get back into the boat and get into the seat. They don't experience the narcissism usually, but usually the borderline, they experience it. And in fact, here's kind of an interesting thing. I was talking to this German woman about this. She said her friend was borderline personality disorder and was able to kind of like had slipped into kind of more psychopathy. You said it was something like you said you're part-time secondary psychopath. Yeah. So she inhabited that for longer, but then she actually was able to recognize it and knock herself out of it because she didn't prefer it. She preferred borderline personality disorder because at least you have like emotional engagement with the world.
Wow.
Than being a psychopath.
That's what I wanted to ask you, was if you could push a button and feel whatever normal empathy, neurotypical person for a week, would you do it? Just,
totally would.
Would you? Yeah. What would intrigue you about it? Just to see, because I'm always jealous, just to say, of psychopaths and sociopaths, because I don't want to feel really. So, would you want to feel a lot of empathy, guilt, sadness,
I think, to me, it's a little bit like the question of if you were straight, would you want to be gay for a week? And I'd be like, I'd be like, yes to everything, really. I am a novelty seeker, number one. But number two, I just think, wouldn't you want the more options? If you went into a restaurant and they just had one option, wouldn't you want at least two options? Wouldn't you want three options? Like, I kind of think everybody, as you say, can learn to be more psychopathic, and psychopaths can learn to be less psychopathic. And that, I just kind of think, doesn't it help to be bilingual? Doesn't it help to be trilingual, quadlingual? And to just understand, like, don't you understand more of the world and experience more of the world that way? Like, why would you want to just be eating vanilla and never try chocolate, for instance?
Yeah. And have you ever had an fMRI? So let's say, well, okay, first of all, have you gone through a lot of therapy with this diagnosis? Yeah. And did you have an fMRI, or was it just purely question after question, diagnosis after diagnosis, and,
As part of therapy, so I'll tell you kind of my diagnostic history. Before I got the book published, my literary agent found my blog and was like, hey, have you thought about writing a book? And I thought, no, I haven't. And she's like, you'd really consider blah, blah, blah. And so finally I decided, sure, I'll consider writing a book. I'll do the proposal. Let's just see what happens with it. But before that, let's double check. Because remember, I told you, I didn't start off thinking, hey, I'm going to be the voice of sociopaths or whatever. I just started off because I was like, I've ruined my life again. And let's try to understand a little bit about this. And I also thought, let's kind of leave breadcrumbs, like a trail that other people can follow who have a similar experience to mine. Because when I started off, there was a comment. It was like, this was such early internet. There was some comment and some deep thing, talking about some documentary. And I thought, this looks like something I wrote. This looks like somebody's written. I identify with it so perfectly. And I contacted the person. I tried to reply to them, but they had written it a year earlier. They never contacted me back. And I just thought, but I'm so glad to have seen this one instance of seeing myself reflected, back to me where I know I'm not alone. And so I thought I'll just kind of breadcrumb this. And so when I started thinking about writing the book, I thought, okay, finally we have to get legit. Finally we have to get diagnosed. So I did get diagnosed. That was like 2010. I ended up getting diagnosed. And then the book came out in 2013. And then after the book, it was honestly really traumatic. I got fired from my job as a law professor. Wow. Yeah, I lost all these relationships. Just everything changed. People were like, this is career suicide. I was kind of like, how is it career suicide? Do you think that it would be career suicide if you came out as being borderline personality disorder if you were a law professor?
Actually, I do a little bit, because everyone hates borderlines. Like, you might think everyone thinks about, but you've seen, everyone thinks Amber Heard immediately as soon as they hear. And Jeffrey Dahmer was also diagnosed with borderline. So everyone goes, oh, that's it. But the box is them. So, I do think that would be career suicide for me. But things have changed. It's sad though,
now. Because and there's treatment for borderline. Yeah, things have changed, but they haven't really changed for psychopaths. Actually, in California, I think this is kind of sad. There's what's called the criminal diversion program. So if you have committed a crime and they think a significant reason for why you committed the crime is that you have a mental health disorder, then instead of going to prison, you can get treatment for that mental health disorder. And for a long time, there were 3 exclusions. One of them, pedophilia. Second one, psychopathy. Third one, borderline personality disorder. And I was like, this one's the worst one. This one's the most stigma. Yeah, I was like, that I think is totally unfounded because there's really good treatments for borderline that work. But it's still, now they fixed that. Now it's just psychopaths and pedophiles have to go to prison.
Wow.
They can't go see a therapist.
That is absolutely ridiculous. And especially if the psychopath has no criminal record or history or whatever, they're just lumped in with pedophiles. That's awful. Oh my God. And also borderlines as well. We're so misunderstood. But anyway, this is about you. So, but yeah. So, who do you think? What types of people do you think are the most easy to manipulate?
Man, that is a really good question. I guess people who are fearful, probably. I think fear is the most reliable lever if you want to try to manipulate people. I mean, you can try to kind of appeal to their self-interest, but even that's not as reliable as the fear, probably because it's lizard brain. And if they're in a fearful state, they're not being rational at all. And so it's really easy to kind of just trick them into things.
Do you have experience with that, or?
I have experience with fearful people. The thing that is kind of funny, you say this and you're like, oh, she exploits our fear. The thing is, I actually fear your fear the most. If I could just take all of your fear away, and that meant never being able to manipulate another person again, but also the rest of you all listening to this didn't experience fear again, I would, because I'm more afraid of it than anything. I have a deathly fear of mob mentality. Part of it is, I've just had the mob hate directed at me. I get it directed at me every day. I have social media presence in which I just talk about these sorts of things, and people being calling for genocide of psychopaths or whatever else. I'm like, okay, do they do that for borderline? Are they like, we just need to put you all on an island and kill you?
Basically, this guy, won't say his name, but famous musician, matched with him on Raya, and he has antisocial personality disorder, right? And I was like, and he has a history of violence with that. Let me separate it. And he has a history of violence with that. And he wrote a comment saying, all women with borderline personality are fucking evil and violent and hateful and they're disgusting and they can never change. And I'm like, coming from you, who's beat everyone up, all your musicians, women, got caught. Sorry. But yeah, like he really, so yeah, we get massive amount of hate online. Yeah. I've only just started coming and saying like, I'm borderline, blah, blah, blah. But I know a lot of people and I think I'm a highly functioning. I have no idea actually, because I've done a lot of crazy shit. But, do you, to me, I would have to have no idea that you were a diagnosed psychopath or a sociopath at all. You seem absolutely lovely, always smiling. You're very upbeat and friendly and very clear. Would you say I come across as borderline? Could you tell? Or
I mean, I think it depends on context. I think a lot of it depends on context, honestly, because I think it's like one of these things. Have you ever seen like these illusions where it's like stacked discs or kind of like a spiral looking thing, and they're like, this is what it looks like from the side, this is what it looks like from the top, this is what it looks like from this angle, and it looks completely different. I think it's one of those things where they actually do this so I grew up in Southern California. They do this. Did you ever watch the TV show Arrested Development?
I've seen a few episodes. All I can think of is the vagina bit. But yeah, I've seen that. But
they talk about this in Orange County. There's something called Pageant of the Masters, where real actors, just community members, recreate famous artwork, right? And so they walk into the scene, and then they take the place of whatever, and then they move some of the sets in, and then at the end they flash the light in this particular way, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the artwork. But if you saw it from the side, it wouldn't look like it. It wouldn't look like the famous artwork. It's like a trick of perspective, right? And I think that's what psychopaths are so good at, is that they understand what you're looking for. They understand that, and they intentionally place themselves right in front of you and place the sets and then turn on the lights, and then bam, you're looking at it and you're like, this is what I expected to see, a person, a normal human.
So you're more, what's the word? Like
masking.
Not in a horrible way, but more calculated in your thinking than, would you say?
I would say it's more calculated thinking just because there's not like an emotional component. But I would say with regard to this, it's that if I were honest in my real life about not having empathy, if you were honest in your real life about watching people being beheaded, how would people treat you?
Well, they're going to see this. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's not like I enjoy it just to put that out there. I'm just fascinated by it. It's not, whoa, that's cool, I want to do that. It's just like fascination. But then I can see like a old person in the supermarket and I'll just be like, oh my God, I want to hug them, So it's really weird. But have you ever pretended to be vulnerable because it was useful? And does everyone do that, do you think?
I think that, as part of the masking, I used to not be able to reliably be vulnerable. Like I could maybe accidentally be that. And you asked me earlier, do I ever get hurt by things? And yeah, I get hurt by things because people will say or do something that I don't expect. Like I don't have my mask up, I don't have my shield up, and it's easy to find like the chink in the armor if you get hit with like a million things in a lifetime. Like at least 0.1% of those are going to hit something. It's like nothing is kind of foolproof. Nothing is flawless about it. So that would be unexpected, let's say, unconsented to vulnerability, or I wouldn't even know how to tap into it if I wanted to. But so I had to pretend to be vulnerable. In fact, I had a friend once in law school who was like, like you never share about yourself. Tell me something like really personal about yourself. And so I was like, all right, let me just find like something kind of shocking in my history, like this like moment of whatever sexual abuse or something that I never thought was like a bad thing, but let me just tell you about it. And she's like crying about it. And I'm like, oh, yep, it was so sad.
And it didn't affect. Sorry to cut in. I was just going to say, do you then think that you've developed a mask because of that, and that's a coping mechanism, or is it just psychopathy where that part of the brain hasn't developed?
I think the coping mechanism is that I don't have a sense of self. I think probably what happened is that there was never a safe moment for me to develop a sense of self, and that's why I didn't develop it. I think that maybe that's even kind of a evolutionary kind of bailout point where it's like, like people because psychopathy is considered genetic and environmental, right? So somewhere in my DNA, there's some component that says when faced with certain types of environmental factors, then it's going to be triggered, and it's going to be triggered in this particular way. I think sometimes, psychopathy has really saved my life, because if I grew up in the circumstance that I did, my particular childhood, and was not a psychopath, I might be like a shell of a person. And I think about it largely in comparison to my siblings, some of whom are shells of people and have never become a functional adult because they experienced the same thing. And instead, I went to, law school. Like, my law school just got made #2 ranked law school. Highest it's been.
Congratulations. Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, I was a law professor. I just looked up because I just came out to one of my clients recently. I was like, you know what? This client has been a long enough. I'll just tell him about the book and everything. So, and then I thought, but you know what? Let's kind of pump myself up a little bit so he still knows he's getting a good deal. So I looked up all of my scholarship from when I was a law professor. It got cited in the Harvard Law Review. It got cited in the Stanford Law Review, the Michigan Law Review, like all these heavy hitting things. I was on law review myself when I was in law school. So I have this pedigree, and that's really my, who can I credit it to? It's my psychopathy. Otherwise I'd be like my siblings who struggle. They're on the struggle bus. They are so like my, I just like, they have so many problems. Like it's like sleeping 14 hours a day or whatever, like their kids. Depression. Yeah, it's just nuts, the stuff that they deal with. And I just think, it's, am I sad that that's what happened, that I became a psychopath and I have been able to be super functional in life because of it? It's complicated. It's really complicated.
Yeah. I'm jealous because I'm a complete mess. I've had multiple suicide attempts, drug addictions. I've moved more times than I stayed anywhere. And I'm jealous of that because I can't put things into a box of control and I feel everything and I remember things and I get angry and blah. So yeah, definitely I'm jealous of. I don't know because I haven't lived it, but the way you describe it, does it so when people are like complaining to you about things, does that annoy you, or are you just more like intrigued, or are you like, oh, for God's sake, like, get over it kind of thing?
I actually think, because I don't like it's weird how it affects the way that I interact with people. Definitely. I think that's kind of like an understatement. One of the things that it definitely affects with interacting people is because I haven't traditionally had a sense of my own personhood, or cared about it. I haven't really respected the personhood of other people. I haven't really understood that when I do particular things, horrible things to people, how damaging that can be, how destabilizing it can be to like their psyche, to like their very core of their self-concept. But it can also mean that I'm not bothered by people. Like, I don't really have an identity, for instance, as, how women can sometimes be mean to other women.
Yeah.
Since I don't have. Yeah. I think maybe it's because of this. It's like you behaving poorly. You're a woman. You're reflecting poorly on all womanhood. I wonder if that's kind of what it is. But since I don't have a strong identity as being a woman, I don't care. Other women can do whatever they want, and I don't care. People can do anything that I am. Other Americans can do things. Other psychopaths can do things. I'm not bothered by people the way that other people seem to be bothered by other people.
Wow. I'm so jealous. So with relationships then, what type of person would you be attracted to, and how have relationships been to navigate that?
Well, so my longest relationship is my current relationship, and she is a psychopath. She's also a psychopath.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Hmm.
That's so cool. How is that dynamic? I guess the way I'm thinking about it, amazing, but like because you because you understand each other, and if you have a fight, you're like, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
I
that
think it is, it's just that there's different things that you're on the same page about, I think, and different things that you're not on the same page about. You know how it's like if you date like somebody who's all from your same kind of culture, both lawyers or both whatever, then there's certain things you're on the same page about that you wouldn't be otherwise. And then,
yeah.
vice versa. But it's easier in some ways, but it's also like it did not come with its own instruction manual. Here's how to be in a relationship with another psychopath. Like it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of learning. I think if I hadn't been in therapy for as long as I had when we started, and she was just starting therapy, then it probably wouldn't have worked. Because when we met, she's like quite a bit younger than I am. She's just a baby psychopath in
Oh,
what
a
I
baby
call the
thing.
playground stage of being a psychopath. I mean, she had gone through like, I don't know, like 12 cars in 12 years. That's not true because she wasn't even that old. But since she had started driving, basically
Yeah.
had like either totaled a car or bricked it, had totally ruined a car. She'd left the car on fire on the side of the road. And
Really?
just like
Well, just
left and
got
got into a cab or something and then went to like the train station or something and just like called her stepdad being like, by the way, my car's on fire on the side of the road.
it's amazing. I
Yeah, like
love that
crazy
though.
stuff. Yeah, I mean like
Yeah.
her in a lot of ways, I was Mormon. I was raised Mormon. So when you look at me, you see, I think, fewer kind of psychopath specific stuff. She was not. And she was raised in the Midwest, which, if people know anything about the Midwest, it's a little
Mm.
bit wild in that
Yeah.
area of the United
Unhinged.
States. So
Yeah.
her history reflects that for sure. She has crazy stories.
I wish I could hear them all. Yeah, because I thought that you guys must have a level of honesty that, like, say, if you were dating a narcissist or a borderline or whatever, or anyone, even someone, you'd have to tiptoe around them, but maybe you don't have to tiptoe around her. Is that
No. In fact, this is
no?
this was my pickup line. I said, "Let's talk logistics. Do you want to make out with me?" That was my pickup line.
Nice.
So
That's
very
awesome.
straightforward. But
Yeah.
no kind of hidden anything.
Wow, that's really cool. And can you spot another psychopath within 5 minutes of meeting them? Or
Honestly, I'm kind of bad at this, I think, as compared to other psychopaths. I don't know why it is. She's better at it. She has better gaydar than I do, too. She's able to pick up on if somebody's gay better than I am able to pick up on it. I will often, sometimes I think this happens. This used to happen before I was like, let's say, less out, is that I would give out kind of indications. I would try to signal, like I would say kind of outrageous stuff and kind of like look give the
yeah,
look or whatever and see if anybody would pick up on it. So
same.
I can pick up on I can pick up on that stuff. If somebody does that to me, then I can be like, that's not a non-psychopath thing to say, basically be like, okay, I think what you are saying is that we are similar in a way.
Yeah,
So that
it's
has
hard
happened.
with women. I was just going to say because men are easy. Women are like, oh God, is she just being friendly? Like, I don't have that to go up and be like, let's make out now. Like, it's a really tough. I have to be drunk basically, which was not good for borderlines either. But what kind of people makes you uncomfortable then? Anyone or?
So there is like a type of person who is not charmed by me. And I would say I've met, I don't know, dozens. So I would say they're probably less than 1% of the population. And I call them like psychopath kryptonite. And it's kind of like, I'm trying to mask, I'm trying to give this projection. And they're like the little kid who's like the emperor has no clothes. I'm always like, shit. How are you not charmed by me? How are you totally oblivious? It's like kryptonite. I'm like Superman walking around. They're there. They're like, nope, that's not funny. That's not real. That's not. I'm like, wow, okay.
Wow. Or is that? I hate to jump to kind of conclusions with labels, but perhaps that sounds slightly autistic to me. That's sort of.
Honestly, autistic people I tend to get along with. They're not necessarily charmed, but I think they think it's refreshing. I would say, in fact, my girlfriend always jokes that like all of my friends tend towards autism spectrum and, have kind of like, especially autism spectrum people who have like social difficulties, that I'm like she says that I'm like their lifeline to the social side of life or whatever. I'm like the only one reaching out and still inviting them to things or whatever. And that yeah. So it could be, but it's more than that. It's more sort of like a no nonsense approach. Like imagine somebody who does not want to be seduced. That's usually who they are. They have no thought of like wanting to be swept off their feet in any sort of way. They have no fantasy life. They have like no desire to kind of escape reality. They probably read nonfiction exclusively. That's more who it is. And it's like everybody else wants to be charmed. I want to be charmed. I want to be seduced. I'm the same way. I want to be manipulated. People think, oh, manipulation's a bad thing. Yeah, I love to be manipulated. If I am going to a therapist, I hope that they're manipulating me. If my girlfriend and I are having intimate moments, I hope she's manipulating me, not in like a bad way, but definitely to try to, whatever, to make it as interesting, as engaging as possible. Like we go to movies to be manipulated. Have you ever cried at a movie? What is that?
Yeah. What, the noise of
no, the movie.
Oh, the dog. Sorry, my dog barked. I was like, yeah, no, I watch dark shit. Like I watch horror, true crime, like way too much, thrillers. Like I can't seem to watch normal TV, and it really, I just like, and my mom's always telling me, watch lighter shit and you'll attract lighter things into your life. But I'm not very spiritual, so I don't believe in that. So I'm just like, but why am I attracted to so much darkness? What do you find yourself like watching a lot of the time, or?
Honestly, I would say, and this is kind of another misconception, my girlfriend does kind of like, she loves horror, etc. For me, I am super childlike. We just watched The Mandalorian and Grogu, and without spoilers, there's like this 20-minute section that's basically just all Grogu. It's like the best 20 minutes of film that I've seen, in a while, where he's just doing his cute little stuff, and you're like, I could watch this probably forever.
Oh, that's really cute. I would never, but again, everyone's different, aren't they? I would never have thought that. I don't know why I had this, preconceived idea that all psychopaths would just be watching, like the horror or something. I don't know why. Just maybe, because that's, again, a silly thing to think is of like, to relate. There's like, well, horror is always about fucking murder and shit. So how easy would you say, just having met me, if you could put a number on it, would you say at what, like 0 to 10, how easy would I be to manipulate, do you think?
To manipulate, like in any sort of way? I mean, I could manipulate you in all sorts of ways. I like just priming you, not in a bad way, but like little ways, like getting you to change the subject, getting you to kind of feel badly about something. Like even just kind of the way that I said, what is that? And you had like a thought that I was talking about a noise with like your dog, for instance. Like it seems like that would be like a window. That type of thing would, if I wanted to exploit you, is the sort of thing that I'm looking for. Because one of the psychopaths on my psychopath discords says it this way: we're like a gas, and we're just looking for any entry point. That so far has been the most obvious entry point that you've shown is like, and people can rewind it and go back and look, to like how vulnerable you seemed when you thought I was talking about your dog for some reason. So then I would just like pick at that. Wow. So that's what I would do. Yeah. If I wanted to to that particular thing. And that is like a weird thing about psychopaths. I remember, so I was like, and it's blurred, this was back before I was like, more out than I am now. But on the Amy Schumer show, I was on the Amy Schumer show, and we're just hanging out, and I'm talking to producers beforehand because she's filming other stuff, and we're just hanging out in one of the back rooms of this bar or whatever. And I'm talking to this woman who turns out to be her sister. And then, Amy Schumer's sister was a producer on her show, and chit-chatting, and then realized she has her sister here. Then now I'm paying attention because I'm like, this is interesting that she has her sister as like one of the producers who's talking to me. And you just think, what is the sister doing here? That would have been like, that was a huge kind of, it's not a red flag. It's just a flag that says to me, there's something out of place here. Like there's something that I have detected that's like if I was looking at the matrix zeros and ones, suddenly I see a 2 and I'm like, what the?
Really?
This 2 should not be here. Yeah. So that's how it feels like. It's like just thinking, okay, here's something that is shouldn't be here, and it's really easy to detect it. And then if it shouldn't be there, then it's because somebody has forced something to happen. Somebody's forced a particular thing to happen, and usually people just go with the flow. That's honestly, you probably live your life like 99% of the time we're going with the flow. We're like, it's not 100%. Like we're pausing a TV show. We just watch the TV show. It's not like we're like thinking about every bite. We're just eating. We just go with the flow. We're not thinking about stuff. But when people kind of interrupt and actually do kind of pause life and do something and change it, in that moment, it leaves a signal, like it leaves behind evidence that it's been tampered with. Life has been tampered with. And so I just noticed where life has been tampered with, let's say, and then I think, okay, that's because somebody had a reason to do it. And then I just like dive into whatever I think is the reason. For Amy Schumer, I thought, correctly, it turns out, and even on the show I talk about this or whatever, that she just has an insecurity about people around her kind of bullshitting her and or wanting to exploit her. And so she has her sister there to kind of straight talk her in a way that she's not offended, but also somebody that she knows has her back or whatever, is why the sister's there as a producer. And why are you paranoid about the dog? Is it okay to say?
Yeah. Well, why am I?
No, I want to guess first.
Okay, go, please guess.
Yeah, I would guess that it's because you have this sense of like an imposter syndrome and the thought that you're like,
wow,
that you're not professional, or that, that you think, you can just start up a podcast or whatever and it's going to be successful or do all these things. And then you keep expecting somebody to kind of realize that you're not meant to be here. That like if you were a real podcaster, you wouldn't have the dog barking, or if you were a real podcaster, this. But actually, you've been doing a really great job. I think you have a very innate talent for asking questions. I've been rambling. You've been hitting me with very interesting questions.
Thank you. I mean, I do. I mean, you hit the nail. I do have imposter syndrome. I do think a lot of people have that, but I also do have a background in radio and some TV presenting and various different, but podcasting is different. It just is, like, it's because it's a new thing, like you said, like, it's just started. And I've been overwhelmed with the type of guests I've got coming on, and especially this one, I guess you've made me more nervous because I've had people talking shit. I have had people wandering off into the other room and not really giving a shit. Whereas you're here being extremely intellectual and open, and like an open book, and challenging me basically. Whereas normally I feel like I have the upper hand, which might sound a bit arrogant, but with some. Oh God, I shouldn't say that because with some of the guests though, I actually refused my last guest. He was an actor. He did not give a shit, and he was horrible. He called me a cunt on the podcast, and a bitch, and was saying. I was like, a lot of actors are very unhinged. I will say that as well. And I actually just sent him a message. This might be my slightly secondary psychopath coming out. I asked AI to help me write, and I was just like, help me write the most cutting message ever to tell him that he's just not good enough. And I won't have it because of his unprofessionality, even though he's a trained actor since childhood. And it was truly awful. Now I'm rambling, but yeah, I'm definitely, yes, I have imposter syndrome and I've been nervous this time. Thank you. And yeah, and also being told that it's like, wow, then there you go. Then you're kind of the power goes up, the power shifts, doesn't it? Whereas before, I felt like we were like a connect, and now I'm like da, 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 and I can see it happening.
Well, I should have asked you. I do have a rule about this to not tell people about themselves. I guess I did kind of ask you. Probably if we went back, I'm sure I asked you because that's definitely my habit. But it is not something that I can stop doing, I guess. So it's not like I'm trying to do this specifically to you. It's that I have done it for so long that it's second nature to me. Now it would be like, before I was a trained musician, I could listen to people sing, and it was fine. Now my brother-in-law uploaded a video of my niece singing, and she's like in first grade, and I was like, this is terrible.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not something you can turn off, right?
That's really funny.
Because I've adapted that sort of way, but it's hard because as a psychopath, like I see all of these things unwillingly. Like I don't want to see this part of you that has reacted the way that you have to the thought that your dog has barked and I've called you out about the dog barking. Like I don't want to see that part because that part of you is more vulnerable than what I want to deal with in the moment usually. And instead, kind of what I've had to do is just understand, honestly, getting back to this idea of cognitive empathy, perspective taking, is realizing kind of what I talked about before. Like whenever I've been vulnerable, like in my life, usually it's been unwillingly. It's been that somebody's like hit something where I'm like, I didn't even realize I was sensitive about that. So instead of me kind of thinking, okay, here's somebody who has flaws and weaknesses, now when I see it, then I try to think, I should be as gentle to this person and to their flaws and weaknesses as I want to be to myself, because I want to show to myself that I will be gentle. I want to show to myself, hey, it's okay, inner Jamie, to have these vulnerabilities and weaknesses, because I don't see it as a problem. I see it as just a part of humanity, in the same way that like a very famous painting, the Mona Lisa, has brushstrokes. It's not like, in fact, if it didn't have brushstrokes, we wouldn't like it. We'd be like, this is AI slop.
AI slop. I'm intrigued now then, if you lost your shit, let's just say, what would that be terrifying? Because I know that there are psychopaths whose eyes do go complete, like the pupils, they do go basically the whole size of the color disappears and it's all black. And like, are you at the point where you don't lose your shit anymore? Or what would push you over the edge?
Yeah, the thing that pushes me over the edge reliably, super reliably, to the point where I get irrational. And it's like, kind of like I say, when people get in a state of fear, they are irrational. The thing that is the same thing for me, but different, is when somebody who doesn't have authority over me seeks to exercise some sort of authority over me. That will just like tip me over the edge into what another psychopath actually calls gray rage. Because it's a total rage. It's not even white hot. It's not hot at all. It's like, it's dead. It looks and feels like shark skin. It's just like totally like, and shark eyes, like dead shark eyes. That's what it feels like. It's very sharky to me. And so like an example I tell in my book, kind of like in the first little parts, no spoilers, there's no spoilers, is that I'm in the DC metro station, Washington, DC, I go down some escalators. There are a ton of escalators in the DC metro system. It's like London. It's like escalators all over the place or whatever. One of them are broken, and I still walk down because when an escalator's broken, it turns into stairs, right? And so I'm walking down the stairs. I have my headphones in. Some dude says something to me, keeps saying something to me, starting to like look at me, gesture. I take my headphones out. He's like, didn't you see the sign? I'm like, what are you talking about? Didn't you see the sign? The sign said that the escalator's broken. I was like, sir, I don't even understand why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
He starts getting more and more angry. He's like, you went down the escalator. You weren't supposed to go down the escalator. It was closed. The escalator was closed and you just went down the escalator. He's getting mad at me. I'm like, is this a janitor? Who is this that's even talking to me about this? And like, why are they so invested? And at that point, I've lost it. He keeps talking to me. He's trying to shame me about walking down these broken escalators because allegedly there was some sort of sign that said it that I did not see. And he maybe felt disrespected or something, that I like ignored the sign or something. So he's getting angry at me. Finally, he's like, well, next time, don't look at the sign or something. He walks off. Wow. I'm like stunned. I'm also in a different city. It's like a foreign city. I forget what I was doing, but maybe something stressful. So I'm not even happy to be there, probably. And so he walks off. I'm stunned. I watch him walk off, and then I get more and more rageful. And I just think nothing. I have like, it's so weird. It's like your mind stops, it like pauses, which is weird for me because I have like a constant running thought. But then the kind of like this urge to just like follow him and just like this picture in my mind of like strangling the life out of him, which I'm like a small person. I am like 5'3". I am like 150 pounds. I could not take that guy. There's no way that even if I had martial arts training, there was no way I could take Ian and most men. I mean, like, this is just a truth about women, especially smaller, like women like me, I guess. But I start following him and I lose him in the crowd, thankfully. And then I calm down and I go to wherever I am. But then for like hours after that, I have basically like a hangover sensation of just all this adrenaline, all this cortisol, all this rage that I experienced for that. It usually lasts like 7-ish minutes.
Wow. 7-ish. That's very precise.
Yeah. I hate to experience more than 5, less than 10.
Gosh,
it's so terrible. It is like the most disgusting. It's like that sensation that you have like right before you're going to throw up, but for like 7 minutes. And the thing though that you want to do to relieve it is not to throw up, but to strangle.
Yeah. And do you imagine that that's what people like who can't control those urges, like Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy, have that before they committed those acts? Or do you think that they're just innately evil people?
No one has ever asked me that question.
Yes.
Let me think about it. I'm sure some of it is, I often think with people with those types of urges that some of it is definitely coming from a sense of need. For me, some of it's coming from a sense of need, I think often from like a trauma that they've experienced. And I think that's true of me too. I think that the reason why I obviously feel so sensitive to people like telling me what to do is because when I was a child, I was never allowed self-determination. Like everything was like, you will do these things in like a very depersonalizing way. Maybe this doesn't make any sense to people, but my girlfriend brings it up all the time about how when I was little, like I would be given assignments, tasks that I had to sit there and do that seemed to intentionally devalue me. Like, for instance, there was a bucket of like nails. Some of them were rusty and some of them weren't. And I was supposed to go through each one, like hundreds of nails. I was supposed to go through and put the rusty ones in one place and then the good ones in some other place. I'm sure that nobody used those nails. I'm sure the other ones also just got rusty. But it was like, it's like the value of my time, of who I am, is so low that you're like tasked with like these stupid tasks that have no value in them. And just, you have to kind of take it, because here's this authority figure who's like, you have nothing. You're nothing. Your choices are nothing. Everything that you are is me. All of your choices are mine. Everything that you are is dictated by an external force. You have no self-determination. You have no self-concept, right to your own self-concept. I will tell you who you are. I will tell you what to do. And so now, if those are such deep wounds for me, that if you want to trigger me and send me flying over the edge, that is exactly what you would do, is tell me what to do or tell me about myself.
Oh my God. I honestly think I have more sociopathic traits now that you said that than I previously knew, because I do exactly the same thing. And I don't like being told what to do or being criticized. But then, again, those are also narcissistic traits. And I go into that psychopath mode that you said. I just give one example, which I can't say which country it is because I get in trouble. But a gang of no, I just have to call them gangsters. They stopped. I was in a blind rage. Except mine lasts for hours sometimes. But it was drunk, so we'll add that in there. But I had no shoes or socks on. I was walking down the highway at God knows what time it was, and then this like car gangsters pulled up and basically said, "Get in." And I must have had black eyes or some shit. Like I literally, there was like really nasty looking men, like, all of them, and I just like suddenly just went, "Get your fucking gun and shoot me in the head." I stared him right in the eye and just said, "Get your fucking gun out and shoot me in the head. Do it." Like that. And he was just like, and they were just like, look at Chica, look at Chica. And then they left. I actually scared them off because I was so confident that they weren't going to do it, and just so in that blind rage. But I guess it might be different to when you were describing where there's nothing. I would just like go in there and fucking do it. Like, I don't know. It was more of a risk take or a self-sabotage moment. What do you think that would be my secondary psychopath? Like,
I love that story. I often think that, and sometimes I'll even kind of channel, like if I know I'm in a bad situation, like I don't know why you're walking on the side of the highway without shoes or socks.
Had an argument, drunk ex thing. Yeah, was a strip club. As you do.
Yeah, but if I'm in those types of situations, I'm not really afraid, but it is true. I will kind of think, what if somebody did kind of, do something like that to me? I'm sure I would just like lose it, because it is them telling me what to do. I'm not even afraid. Like the thing that I'm most afraid of is going back to that place of childhood, of feeling like now I'm in this situation with you. So that's what reminds me most of the story, is that if you're less afraid of dying, going back to that place, whatever that place is, of where you're now in this situation with these people, then I think that is kind of a crazy thing. But I think it can also kind of seem weird if you have like a high connection to life and the value of life. I think to listen to people like us talk about this, because you think, how bad could it have been during the childhood? Like how bad could it have? Yeah, like what? And it's really not that bad, because what if I told you that I've like separated like rusty nails? Yeah, there was like physical, emotional abuse too. Like we could spend all these, but the things that kind of stand out most to me are more kind of like the benign neglect and the inability to like develop my own sense of self, to have like a safe space in which to have any of those types of things fostered has been just like this huge hole in my life. And if I allow it, like it would eat everything. It is kind of like a black hole. Like everything, if it gets close enough, it has such a gravitational pull. So what do you do in the face of having like a black hole like that? You don't care about certain things. You don't care, I guess, about gangster guys pulling you over with a van. And also you kind of are like, I think like, do you have a strong attachment to life? Are you like, I'm 10 out of 10 attached to life?
No, I'm 6, 7 out of 10 attached to life.
Yeah.
Depends on the mood, depends on the day. This morning I was so irritable. Ugh. Yeah, I get suicidal thoughts a lot, so no. But yeah, no, I'm not very attached to life. That's a good point. That was probably part of it. What about you?
I'm not attached to life. I don't usually think, suicidal thoughts, I think of them as being like often pain driven. Does that kind of seem like I'm suffering, like there's an active negative thing happening? To me, like I think the reason why I haven't had suicidal thoughts is I don't feel anything intensely. And nor so the negatives, no, and not the positives. And so it's never been kind of like, well, let's kill myself or something, because my problem has been kind of a little bit the opposite of, I think, the typical borderline personality disorder person is that I feel everything very muted. I feel a lack of engagement. I feel a lack of intensity. I feel like everything's like very quiet. I don't feel like things are loud at all.
Except the escalator.
Except the escalator.
Yeah. And I'm
Then
sure
it's
there
like,
are other. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, I'm going to start. No. And okay, just to sort of round off, and thank you so much. This has been one of the most fascinating interviews I probably will ever have. I really appreciate it. And is there a question you're not asked, that you're disappointed that you're never asked, that you might want to get out
you
there?
asked all the right questions.
Yay, awesome. Thank you. You're a sweetheart. And okay, advice. If someone, first of all, if they were starting to think that their kid might have traits of sociopathy and psychopathy, what would they to look out for at a young age so they can get into therapy before it might turn into something worse? So what advice would you give to parents?
This one is a hard one. I'm glad that you asked this because I am part of, it was a nonprofit. I don't know technically its legal status now, but it definitely is a society. It's a society for the prevention of disorders of aggression. It's not just for children, it's kind of for everything. But obviously, if you're preventing these disorders, psychopathy specifically, it's in when they're children, because it's not like they develop it when they're like in their 30s or something.
Yeah.
So I think you can go to psychopathyis.org. They have a ton of information about this stuff. I love to promote them. I'm on their advisory board. So are some other kind of famous psychopaths that you might know. Patrick Gagney, who has her book, Sociopath, a memoir. Which, if you haven't talked to her and you want to kind of talk to even more psychopaths, then you can talk to her. Yeah, Abby Marsh, who is a psychologist who teaches at Georgetown and studies psychopaths, is kind of the head of this group, the organization. They have some other people on the board, other famous psychologists that you would kind of recognize in this sort of field. I think that's a really good resource. I think with this, there's something that parents are concerned about is the stigma. And I think this is kind of one of the worst things about the stigma. Like, if you have no motivation to try to get rid of the stigma for adult psychopaths because you think fuck them and karma's a bitch and whatever, then think about the kids, because parents are reluctant to get their kids help because of the stigma. Because if they get identified as being this particular way, then it's going to follow them in these particular ways, and that they're going to have a more limited life than they are. And honestly, looking at people like me, they are. Can they be law professors? Apparently not. Apparently that's too risky to have them be a law professor. So I just think it's a hard thing. I think though for kids, the tricky thing is this idea of you have to parent them so differently. Like, if they're not responding to negative discipline, then you cannot double down on like the negative discipline. And it's not even just like physical discipline. It's like taking stuff away from them. If they seem to get really cold hearted and angry when you do that, then maybe stop doing that. Don't don't try to provoke them to go these different kind of ways compensating them. You're not going to break them. If anything, they're going to break you. Honestly, if they are kind of like this, like they respond so much better to positive reinforcement. I do that even with my girlfriend. I know that if I kind of withdraw or whatever, or be kind of like I'm upset at you for this, that it's going to send her into a rage maybe. So I have to think instead, when I catch her doing positive things, then I positively reinforce it. There's just like certain ways that you can just kind of do the same thing in a totally different way. And I think that is hard for some parents who think that, there's like a particular way of raising children, or children have to be this, or, and that's in general for all people. People have to be this. And if I see you not showing empathy, then I'm going to, try to ruin your life or whatever. It's just a hard thing to realize that your child may be fundamentally different from you in a way that you may even find a little bit inhuman. That's a hard truth. Yes. And I think that can be the reason why people don't get help. I mean, even with my nephews and nieces, sometimes I have one nephew that I'm like, he has OCD. And has he ever been sent to a therapist? No. Why?
Really?
Why do parents, why are parents reluctant to send their kids to...
OCD is such a hard one as well. I mean, I've got a bit of that as well. I'm very neurotic, but OCD is impossibly hard. So I don't know why they wouldn't have got help for that. I shouldn't say that, but I think everyone should get help for everything if they see. But it's hard. I mean, some people don't even believe in it, and they just say it's just personality, and I hate that. I'm like, is it? Because we have now evolved onto. When I got the label of borderline, I was relieved. I was a bit embarrassed, but I was relieved because other people, like you said before with you, other people experience this too. And then now I'm cool with it. I'm like, I'm fine apart from relationships. Terrible. But anyway, thank you. But no, thank you so much for coming. I really do appreciate that. That's absolutely amazing. And I definitely will be doing more. I'll try and do like a broad spectrum, but everyone is super interested in psychopathy and sociopathy and stuff like that. So thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. And I have to say, I wish you all the best, the success. I've been looking at your particular like camera angle, cutting off like the top. You have like can I say something about you?
Sure.
You have like an innate taste for these types of things. You have an innate instinct. And I really feel like you have a strong like voice, particular voice, and very unique voice. And I hope that it gets amplified as loud as it could possibly get. I really appreciate you and your openness with being borderline personality disorder.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamie. You're absolutely lovely. And I wish you all the best. And have you got anything coming up? Any more books? Have you got a series? What have you got coming up?
Like for promoting or whatever, honestly, just like my social media channels, I'm trying to reach out to as many people as possible. That's kind of been like my goal of recently is let's just try to, people are interested. So let's give them the truth. Let's tell them how it actually is. If people are interested in those types of things, my book, Confessions of a Sociopath, same thing. Just kind of like, this is like, we're here, we're queer, and we're not going away. Like these old kind of like chants or whatever of like, this is just what reality is. I read this quote recently where it's like, once you face the truth, the main question is, what do you do with it? And that's where the world gets interesting, is what do you choose to do with the truth?
Wow. That is fascinating. Thank you so, so much, Jamie. I really appreciate you. And I'll cut some clips and send you and let me know what you think.
All right. Sounds good. Chat you later.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.